There's a lot of conjecture out there in the body politic as to why Donald Trump is doing what he's doing, and to the vastness of what he's doing, and why he's trying to break the market.
Do you think he's trying to break the market?
I think he's trying to. Yeah, I think he's trying to break some China. I think he's trying to break international trade. I think he's trying to break the market a little bit. Market has been overvalued for some time, and trying to shuffle the deck, so to speak.
Okay.
And we'll see if he can be successful, because I don't think the market has quite gotten to the bottom. But everyone I've talked to who measures these things and looks at these things has been hoping for this for actually a couple months. They thought it would come in November after he was elected, but now it's coming now, and it allows a lot of people to shuffle the decks, and it should be interesting to see how it all pans out.
So there have been a lot of different. So I think I sent to you an article by Rod Martin.
I don't know if I've seen it.
I emailed.
I know there's an article everyone's talking about today from Victor Davis Hanson.
Yeah,
who makes an argument that for Trump, not so much for what's happening in the market, but the market is the market, and the fundamentals are the fundamentals. And I had that discussion with somebody the other day. The fundamentals of American business are still very, very strong. Employment's still strong. Everything's very, very strong. How this plays out internationally for Donald Trump is the mindset of saying we've had of respect. And I think that's what Dr. Hanson's getting at, is that we've had an open border for how long? 30 years. People flooding in this country. Now it's being reported widely that we have over 1 million people on the voter rolls that shouldn't be on the voter rolls. We have over 1 million illegals on Medicaid and Social Security. You've got Social Security cards. So that was just reported this week. That all needs to stop, because that's taken away from America, American citizens. That's part of what Trump is doing on the border. What he's doing internationally, saying we can't sustain a $36 trillion debt and a $1.7 trillion trade deficit with countries who don't like us and don't want to buy our products.
Right.
And so how do we break that? Well, we're going to break the whole thing first. And I'm not defending that approach. I think a more measured approach with different countries makes a lot more sense than breaking all the China at once. But that's what he's done.
Well, but there's the different people have viewpoints of like what's the game,
what's the game?
The messaging from the White House, from the administration, has been a little bit mixed, because
it's been horrendous.
You have some saying, oh, well, this is a negotiating tactic, we're going to get to zero tariffs on partners, and this is temporary. The other side saying these tariffs are going to raise us a bunch of money, and so it's
going to replace the income tax or whatever.
So if you're negotiating to zero, that's not going to raise a bunch of money. If you're raising a bunch of money, you're not negotiating to zero. So which is it? And I don't know that. I'm not even certain that Trump knows what it is, because I think he is basically saying, I have been talking about tariffs since the 1980s, and he has. Yes. He had an open letter in the New York Times in 1987 where he talked about tariffs and the need for us to raise them on particularly Japan at the time.
Yeah.
Because of how much money we were spending on defense for Japan. And
I don't think that's necessarily a bad argument.
No, I mean,
certainly in 1980, it might have been looked at like, well, I mean, we weren't that far away from World War II, but now we're 80 years.
Well, and I think that as I look at it, we have given countries a pass on having high tariffs on our stuff going to their countries and no tariffs on their stuff coming to our country,
or minimal tariffs, 2%, 3%.
In part as an attempt to freeze out the Soviet Union during the Cold War.
Sure.
Cold War ended in 1989. The wall came down. Reagan won. So the tariff situation probably should have changed at that point. But we let that continue.
Well, the whole military calculus should have changed at that time. I mean, at least maybe not at that moment because you didn't know what was going to happen. But now, why do we still have how many bases in Germany?
50. Well, I don't know. I mean, we have Germany, but we've got 56 bases in other countries.
But just in Europe, let's just take Europe because I think so much of this is actually being targeted at Europe. We're spending all this money propping up European society.
Yeah.
Okay. The reason why European society has great health care and lovely roads but can't build a car to save their life in France or Great Britain is because of America. We have bases all over the UK. We have bases all over Germany. We have several bases in France. We have several bases in Spain. Yeah. We have I shattered my wrist in Italy. La Spezia, huge training base for the Navy. Didn't know that.
And aren't you glad it was there?
I was glad it was there if I needed it, but I didn't know that until I was there.
Right.
And they're like, "Oh, are you military?" And I'm like, "What?" Like, "Oh, with the military base." I go, "What military base?" The one that's just down the road. So that in and of itself had a place, and I get that. But that time has changed.
Yeah.
And when Europeans balk about, spending more money on defense, and then you can't buy an F-150. It's a broken record. Couldn't buy an F-150, or you still can't buy an F-150, the number one car in America, in Germany, unless you go through an importer.
Right.
That's outrageous, and I think that's what Trump is trying to bring to the forefront. That it's access. It has everything to do with money, but it has so much to do with access.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it is funny.
I can't argue with him when he brings that stuff up.
Right.
Like, okay, I don't know. I don't agree with the approach of what he's doing right now. I just want to make that clear. I don't like tariffs overall. I think they're taxes. But he must see something where he needs to break the order to rebuild it in some way.
Yeah. So the discussion of tariffs and the impact it has on what's going on in the United States has hit close to home.
Mm.
And when I say close to home, I mean 3 doors down from my home.
Okay.
So the New York Times did a piece, How Trump's Tariffs and Immigration Policies Could Raise Home Building Costs. They did a story on this.
Okay.
The house that they highlight is a house that's being built 3 doors down from my house on my street.
What are those 2-story homes?
Yeah. Well, actually, this one's not 2-story, but they're using
one of those rants.
It is tear down, and they're using the vast majority of the lot for the house. It's going to be a very small yard. But it highlights Nathan Anderson, who's the builder, and he goes through and says that because of the immigration issue, the house is going to be significantly more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
If these things happen, he projects that the concrete foundation is going to be 25% more in labor cost, and framing is going to be 25% more in labor cost. And then material.
Was he using illegals? Because he can't do that in the state of Arizona. There's already a state law called E-Verify that says you can't do that. That would be
listen to this.
Crime.
This is literally in the New York Times. Nearly half the roofers in the U.S. are not citizens, and so they talk about how roofing is going to be 20% more expensive. The labor of roofing and drywall and flooring and painting.
This is sort of racist in many ways. I hate this argument of the left that you're going to pay more for stuff because we import slave labor to keep your stuff cheap.
I mean, it was basically and then at the end
that's essentially what they say when
ultimately
they say
this house is going to be for sale for $2.6 million, which is insane because that is like so much more.
But somebody from California will pay it.
And the cost to him
Because they don't have big yards in California anyway, so
right.
I don't care.
To buy the old house and lot, and then build a new house on it, cost him $1.6 million. So he has $1 million profit.
That's not bad.
But he says he's going to need to raise the price of the house if these tariffs and immigration issues actually go through. And I'm like, so you have to protect your $1 million in profit because you have illegal immigrant labor, rather than pay an extra 20% to Americans to do this
and maybe
job.
make $500,000 on the house,
or 750 or 800,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, it is astounding to me that he was willing to be in the New York Times saying, yeah, basically, I pay my illegal immigrants less than what I would pay
when I would pay just
the citizen.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
And
I breaking the law.
Yeah.
I mean, the one way that I've always advocated to fix illegal immigration nationwide, it's an easy national fix. Pass E-Verify. Pass E-Verify.
Well, don't we have E-Verify here?
We do. We're one of the first states to pass it. And then that's why
So
so
actually
many
enforce
and actually we enforce it as well. And
apparently not on my
well,
street.
not when it comes to that type of construction, obviously.
I guess
but Arizona for many years, because of E-Verify, has been more of a pass-through state because there's certain jobs that you just can't get.
Right. So it does frustrate. I mean, I get that we want to have we were just talking about affordable housing, and this is going to make housing slightly more expensive. But if tariffs and the crackdown on illegal immigration leads to a little bit higher prices because we're using American labor, I mean, I think that's what Trump is going for. Whether you like it or agree with it or not, that's what he's going for. But we need to get rid of the regulations.
Yes.
That make things more expensive, so that we don't have to cut corners by paying less money to illegal immigrants to do some of this construction.
Yeah, how many hoops does that developer have to go through?
Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
Just to pour the foundation.
Yeah, I'm sure it was
in any given community.
I'm sure it was
crazy.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is about as much as he was paying. Let's just use
California as an example. None of those homes, we've talked about this before, on PCH are going to get rebuilt.
No.
By the vast majority of people who own them, because their entire wealth was in that house.
Yeah.
And there's no way that the regulatory body called the Coastal Commission is going to allow it. The only people who will be building there are multi-millionaires, billionaires who can buy it all up, redevelop it, pay all the fees, and build whatever they want.
Yep.
But also the Coastal Commission will look at it as an opportunity to clear out all that land.
Yeah.
Make it all,
Well, it will be interesting to go through the Pacific Palisades.
We'll pay for that too. Years. We'll pay for that here.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to pay for if you're getting ready for your insurance renewals right now, which a lot of people are. You're going to see it.
Yeah, there'll be.
You're going to see it. Everyone's going to pay for it
for sure
because they got to get the money somewhere.
So going back to the overall tariff thing, some people,
everyone's trying to figure out what is he doing.
Well, the MAGA core people are saying, "Oh, this is 4D chess. We're gonna get to the resolution of this is going to be amazing." They don't really know what it is.
No.
You and I have talked about it, and I think Stephen Moore is where we are, which is if we're going to have these tariffs, we got to have tax relief immediately.
Yes, absolutely. Like tomorrow.
Yeah,
what are you guys doing?
And if we're going to keep these tariffs in place, then let's head towards no income tax. That needs to be that. I've become more and more bullish on that. Needs to be a national goal, is to get rid of the income tax. If we
I just
at a minimum we flatten it. If we can't, and if we but ideally get rid of it and go to a sales tax.
Yeah, I don't see that as the end goal. I think it's to get 0 for 0. I think that's where they're moving towards.
You think it's to get
just
completely open up trade?
Yeah, I just think it's a 0 for 0 game because you can't. So if the European Union says, okay, we're going to go 0 for 0 and open it up, and we're not going to, play games with your wine and cheese versus our wine and cheese. This is the way it's going to be. Then that's going to freak out European markets because they've played protectionism for years on so many products.
Well, and it's
where American products are just as good, if not better.
Well, it will crush the economies of other countries because we are the biggest consumer in the world.
Yeah.
So if there are tariffs on stuff coming in, that's going to hurt those markets.
Of course.
Significantly.
If you put a 20% tariff on every BMW, Mercedes, name the European car that so many people here drive.
Well, I mean, you want to talk about...
There's a lot of people who are not going to care, but their sales will plummet.
The tariff coming off of Japan and Korea.
Of course.
I mean, there are so many Japanese and Korean cars.
Oh, of course.
Kia is, I mean, there's more Kias on the road than I see Kias everywhere.
And you can't buy an American car in those countries. Can't buy them. That's the issue. It's access.
Yeah.
It's access to markets, fair access to markets. I mean, and tariffs are a tool to try to open that up.
Now,
whether that happens or not, we'll see. But
yeah, and I think
it has to happen.
I think I speculated in the previous episode that maybe one of the things that will happen is the markets go way down. The Fed realizes, we can now cut the rates. The interest rates are down, and then we can refinance the debt, which would save us hundreds of billions of dollars.
There's a lot of
Trump actually talked about that.
Yeah, there's been a lot written about that. Part of the breaking of the China is to create a situation where interest rates can get lower.
Yeah,
debt can be refinanced, and we have a big debt bomb happening this year.
Yeah. Well, and keep in mind, this is something now I know that
huge payments.
Our listeners and viewers are probably in the market.
Yeah,
I
would say most of them are.
The majority of our listeners and viewers are in the market in some way, whether it's they have their own accounts or their 401k is in the market, whatever their retirement, that kind of thing, IRA. The fascinating thing and this was Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, 88% of the market is owned by 10% of America.
Yeah.
12% of the remaining 12% of the market is owned by 40% of America. So there are 50% of Americans that don't have that they're just debt. They just have debt.
Yeah.
And
they have mortgage debt, credit card debt.
What his point is that we've got to get them relief because mortgage debt, credit card debt, automobile bill loan debt.
Yeah.
Those are
the
highest levels ever, and they're starting to be late. We're seeing. I've seen a couple reports about late payments are going up in all three sectors.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Well, and there's a lot of corporate debt out there too.
Yeah, that's true.
That is coming due, and that's a big concern right now with the tariffs.
Yeah. So,
because the banks are now calling in, are now making margin calls on a lot of different corporate debt.
So my position on this at this point is let's take a breath because this is going to sound crass. If you're in the market, yes, you're going to take a hit. But guess what? You're going to buy the dip and you're going to make it all back. But there's half of America who is not affected in that regard.
That was the other point that Victor Davis Hanson was making. He's like, so many of these people who are in the market, they're freaking out because their 10 to 20% returns might not be there this year.
Right.
It might be more like a 5 to 7%, which is normal, or 8%, which is normal, versus 10, 20, 30%, which has been the case over the last 10 years.
Which has been insane.
It's just been crazy. Yeah. So that's why everyone's freaking out. has nothing to do with fundamental economics, has everything to do with the way the market is structured.
Basically,
and also the way the market has been structured over the last 2 decades has been the Fed has been buying up stocks.
Yeah.
And it's through quantitative easing. And that gravy train is over.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it does, I have to really, as a Reagan baby and a free market guy, I've always been anti-tariff. I still
I'm with you.
feel that way, but I understand that there's probably things that I haven't thought about, the inequity of the tariff positions vis-a-vis the other countries and how much they're taking advantage of the United States. And
I
that
think
stuff we do need some course correction.
I
on some of
think
this.
you can talk about that when it comes to developed Western countries. I think when you're talking about Vietnam, it's where the GDP per capita is like $750 or $7,000
I mean,
bucks.
Malaysia.
I mean,
you name it.
everyone's like, "Oh, yay, Vietnam!" Like, they have no money.
There's no money.
There's no money.
There's
We
not
have a trade deficit with
huge
them because
Vietnamese
they have no
market for
money.
us. Yeah.
I think when you're talking about the European Union, Canada, even Mexico, to that extent, the Western powers, there needs to be some reciprocation.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to tax our trucks and cars at 10%, guess what? You're not going to get a pass anymore for your BMWs and your Mercedes.
Right.
So that's kind of the starting point in many ways. And when we were fine racking up trillions of dollars of debt to be the loaner to the world, that was great. But that gravy train is over.
Yeah.
We have got to freeze spending, shut down the border, and these other countries have got to restructure their economies to start standing on their own.
Right.
They have stood on the shoulders of America for 80 years.
Yeah.
In the post-World War II
Since
era.
the end of World War II.
They have stood on the shoulders of America. God bless us. God bless our country. God bless those countries. Guess what? The world's changed.
Yeah.
They have to stand on their own. That's also what's happening in the markets. They have to stand on their own.
Yeah. I agree. Well, we will see how this shakes out. And I guess my whole point is I'm willing to take a breath and see how it shakes out. I'm not going to have a freak out. I'm not going to say
if the
that
goal
this
is 0 to 0, I think that's great.
Well, if it's 0 to 0, that warms my free market heart.
Yeah, that would be
right?
great.
And especially if it's actually 0 to 0, because
if you go to 0 and we stay at 10, that's not going to work.
Well, but we won't.
No.
I don't think because it won't work. But I don't think he would do that. I mean,
that's
he
what
can
Peter
take the
Navarro
win.
wants to do.
Yeah. Well,
I think Besant is actually Besant. We're going to get this wrong. He seems to be the most reasonable of everyone who's out there speaking.
Yeah. Well, and you've got Musk talking about where we are.
Well, Musk gets it too.
He gets it. He's a free market guy. He understands. So
yeah, because his major business gets products from everywhere.
Yeah.
That's the other realization that needs to happen in some ways. That's why I hope 0 to 0 is the goal. It's because the global economy exists as it exists because we've allowed it to happen over the last 30, 40 years with the trade policies that we've enacted. And that gives companies the leeway of buying different parts and products and inputs from different countries at lower prices, lower costs. That just doesn't change on a dime. Repatriation of American factories and jobs, it's going to take decades.
Yeah, it's going to take time for sure.
But if the goal is 0 to 0, it can happen quicker than normal.
Yeah.
But it's very complicated, and I think there are great points on both sides of this issue.
Yeah, just know that you're going to lose if you're in the market. You're going to lose a little bit of money. You can buy a little bit more on the bottom and make it back within
the people I've been
years.
talking to, and I see people at the kids' school who are in this, and wealth managers, whatever. They've been waiting for a big correction for a while. 12 to 15%. And they didn't know it would happen like this, but they're actually
generally prepared.
happy that it's there because it was due.
Yeah.
We need some pricing correction in the market.
Yeah.
It was
We have-
way overvalued.
What
That's
is
why
it averages. We average
That's
a course correction every couple of years,
yeah,
right?
that's why Buffett was holding on all that cash. Why is he holding on the cash? Well,
Because he knows this
correction's
thing
coming.
is cyclical. Yeah.
Yeah, just watch what Buffett does.
Yeah. Exactly. Smart guy.
Yeah.
All right.
And the beauty of compounded interest.
That's right.
Still there.
It's still
Still
there.
exists.
Time is
So
our friend.
everyone who's panicking, let them panic.
Yeah.